The Weird Witch of the Willow-Herb was written by Evelyn Sharp and will be read by Linda Levine. Part 1. The Weird Witch of the Willow-Herb lived in a pink cottage on the top of a hill. She was merry and beautiful and wise and kind, and she was all dressed in pink and green, and she had great eyes that were sometimes filled with laughter and sometimes filled with tears, and her round soft mouth looked as though it had done nothing but smile for hundreds and hundreds of years. Her pink cottage was the most charming place in the world to live in. The walls were made of the flowers of the willow-herb, and the roof was made of the green leaves, and the floors were made of the white down, and all the little lattice windows were cobwebs, spun by the spiders who live in fairyland and make the windows for the fairy queen's own palace. And no one but an imp or a fairy could have said how long the Weird Witch of Willow-Herb had been living in her cottage on the top of the hill. Now, anyone might think that this wonderful witch was so sweet and so wise that all sorts of people would be coming all day long to ask her to help them, for of course that is what a witch is for. But this particular witch, who lived in her pink cottage on the top of the hill, had not been living there all that time for nothing. "If I did not keep a few spells lying about at the bottom of the hill, I should never have a moment's peace," chuckled the Willow Witch. And that is why most of the people who came to ask her for spells never got so far as the pink cottage at all, for they found what they wanted at the bottom of the hill, and no doubt that saved everybody a great deal of trouble. "Poor people," said the Weird Witch, with her voice full of kindness. "Why should I make them climb up all this way just to see me?" Sometimes, however, it did happen that somebody got to the top of the hill, or else it's clear that this story would never have been written. For one day, as the witch sat on the doorstep of her pink cottage, looking out over the world with her great eyes that saw everything, the little Princess Winsome came running up the white path that twisted round and up until it reached the cottage at the top, and she did not stop running until she stood in front of the Weird Witch herself. She looked as though she must have come along in a great hurry, for she had lost one of her shoes on the way, and there was quite an important scratch on her dimpled chin. But of course it's difficult to walk sedately when one is going to call on a witch. "I'm Princess Winsome," she announced, as soon as she had enough breath to speak. "To be sure you are," smiled the Weird Witch, who knew that before. "And you have run away from home because—" "Because I want to find the bravest boy in the world," interrupted the princess, who never liked to let anybody else do the talking. "Are they all cowards in your country, then?" asked the witch. "Oh, no," answered Princess Winsome. "The boys in my country are so brave that it's no fun playing with them. They stop all the games by fighting about nothing at all, and it's dreadfully dull when you're a girl, isn't it?" "Perhaps it is," smiled the witch. "Then why are you looking for the bravest boy of all?" "Ah," said the little princess wisely, "the bravest boy of all would never fight unless there was a reason, you see, and so we should have lots of time to play. But how am I to find him?" "The only way to find him is to let him find you," said the Weird Witch, "and the best thing I can do for you is to shut you up in the middle of an enchanted forest, where no one but the bravest boy in the world would ever come to find anyone. Now make haste, or you won't get there in time." The princess, with the scratch on her chin, most certainly have made haste, for she had quite disappeared by the time the witch's next visitor came up the winding white path. And that happened the very next minute. This time it was a boy who came along, a tall, strong, jolly-looking boy, with his hands in his pockets and his cap at the back of his head, whistling a strange wild tune that was made up of all the songs of all the birds in the air, so that as he whistled it, every bird for miles around stopped to listen. "I am Kit the Coward," he said, pulling off his cap to the witch. "To be sure you are," smiled the Weird Witch, who knew that too. "And you have run away from home because the other boys called you a coward, and you want to show them that you are as brave as they are, only you won't fight without a reason. Isn't that it?" "Of course it is," answered Kit, who liked to have his talking done for him. "But how shall I find something worth fighting about?" "That is not difficult," said the Weird Witch. "All you have to do is to go to the court of King Hurly-Burly and ask him to give you something brave to do. The king is always going to war about something, so you will soon have as much fighting as you want. Now be off with you, or else someone else will get there before you." "All right," said Kit. "Which way is it?" "Any way you like," laughed the Weird Witch. "But in what direction?" asked Kit. "It doesn't matter," laughed the Weird Witch. So Kit made another bow and marched away down the hillside, whistling the same tune as before, and all the birds in the air came flying when they heard it, and they flew in front of him to show him the way, and he followed them over meadows and streams and orchards and cornfields until they brought him to the walls of King Hurly-Burly's city, and they would not have left him then if he had not pointed out to them most politely that although it was very obliging for them to have come so far with him, he would find it a little inconvenient to travel any further with so many companions. So they flew away again, and Kit marched into the city and up to the gates of the king's palace.
And now it is time for all little children to go to sleep. Good night.